When we attempt to trace the earliest chapters of the children of Israel, we find that the physical record is remarkably quiet. Because the archaeological evidence is almost non-existent, historians must look to the Torah and ancient Jewish writings to reconstruct this timeline. This story begins in the Mesopotamian city of Ur, with the migration of Prophet Abraham and his wife Sarah. They journeyed toward Canaan in modern-day Palestine. Because Abraham crossed the river during this trek, he was called Ibri, or Hebrew, a term meaning the one who crossed over. Abraham's family eventually branched into two lineages. His eldest son, Ishmael, moved to Mecca in the Arabian Peninsula, where he married into the local Jurhim tribes and became the ancestor of the Arabized Arabs. Abraham's second son, Isaac, remained the focus of the Hebrew narrative. Isaac fathered Jacob, who was also known as Israel. Jacob had 12 sons, each of whom became the patriarch of a specific group. These are the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel, including names that would define history, like Levi, Benjamin, and Judah. This small, wandering family provided the genetic and narrative blueprint for an entire civilization, one that would spend the next several thousand years in a constant search for a permanent homeland. The tribes eventually left Canaan for Egypt after Jacob's son Joseph achieved an exalted status within the Egyptian royal court. This prompted the entire family to migrate, beginning a stay in the Nile Delta that lasted for 3 generations. The hospitality of the Egyptians eventually evaporated. The monarchs turned against the Israelites, stripping them of their status and forcing them into a brutal, multi-generational system of slavery. Deliverance came through Prophet Moses, a descendant of the tribe of Levi. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt in the mass escape known as the Exodus. During this journey, he delivered the Mosaic Law, a legal and religious code that became the center of their identity. The road back to Canaan was grueling. The Israelites lived as nomads, wandering through the desert for 40 years. It was during this harsh period of transition that Prophet Moses passed away, leaving a new generation to complete the journey. The experience of shared bondage and the adoption of a singular law changed these people. They reached the borders of Canaan as a unified nation with a collective purpose, rather than a loose collection of family tribes. Under the leadership of Joshua bin Nun, the Israelites fought a series of massive battles to secure the land of Canaan. After his victory, however, the tribes fractured. For 3 centuries, they were ruled by local leaders known as judges. Centralization finally arrived when a man named Saul was chosen to be the first king. His successors, David and Solomon, expanded the kingdom's borders and solidified its power. Solomon marked this golden age by building a massive sanctuary in Jerusalem, the first temple. This unity was short-lived. Following Solomon's death, internal conflict broke out, and the nation was torn into 2 kingdoms. In the north was the kingdom of Israel, comprised of 10 tribes. In the south remained the kingdom of Judah, held by the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. This internal split ended the Israelites' period of regional dominance. These 2 smaller, rival states were now vulnerable, sitting directly in the path of the ancient world's most aggressive superpowers. The northern kingdom of Israel fell first. In the 8th century BC, the Assyrian Empire invaded the region, destroyed the capital of Samaria, and wiped those 10 tribes from the historical record. The southern kingdom of Judah was eventually conquered by the Babylonians. King Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem, destroyed Solomon's temple, and dragged the vast majority of the population away to Babylon as slaves. This 50-year Babylonian captivity forced a massive shift in how the Israelites lived. Immersed in a foreign capital, they began to absorb Babylonian customs, traditions, and religious rituals into their own culture. Because they no longer had a temple, they had to innovate to survive. Ezra the scribe likely compiled the Torah into its modern form during this era, and the Israelites established the synagogue, a place to gather and pray even when far from Jerusalem. The Babylonian exile evolved the faith into something portable. By prioritizing the text of the Torah and the gathering of the synagogue over a physical building, the Israelites ensured their culture could survive in any corner of the world. After the Persians conquered Babylon, they allowed the Jews to return to Canaan and rebuild their temple. However, this return was followed by centuries of struggle under Greek rule, where the population faced severe persecution for refusing to adopt pagan customs. The Roman Empire eventually took control, turning the region into the province of Judea. While the Jews maintained some local authority, tensions with Rome were constant, fueled by a refusal to assimilate into Roman culture. In 70 AD, the Roman Emperor Titus responded to a Jewish rebellion by utterly destroying Jerusalem. His legions burned the Second Temple to the ground, a loss so total that the structure was never rebuilt. Following a final failed rebellion led by Bar Kokhba, the Romans executed thousands and systematically deported the remaining population. This state-sponsored displacement forced the Jews out of their homeland and into every corner of the Roman Empire. This event, the Roman Diaspora, served as the definitive turning point in their history. It ended the Jewish people's physical concentration in Canaan for nearly 2,000 years. The diaspora dispersed the Jewish population across Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the Middle East. For 20 centuries, they lived as a scattered people, deeply integrated into the nations where they settled. Centuries of geographic isolation and migration led Jewish communities to intimately mix with local populations, adopting their languages and customs while maintaining their core religious identity. The faith also grew through the conversion of foreign monarchs. King Bulan of the Khazars, Queen Helena of Adiabene, and King Dunawas of Yemen all adopted Judaism, bringing entire populations into the faith and often making Hebrew an official language. Thus, much of the modern lineage traces back to these converted populations, rather than the ancient Levantine tribes. The history of the children of Israel is a record of adaptation. Repeated exiles scattered their population, weaving their cultural and genetic identity into the very fabric of civilizations across the globe.